Okay, so on this channel, we only talk about hot stocks from hot sectors. But today, we need to talk about something that isn't doing too hot, and that is software stocks. We're in a pretty bad downtrend, and I'm just going to extend the daily, and we are making lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, and it looks like we might actually put in another lower high, and of course, we're also making lower lows as well. A very well downtrending ETF, and this is because of AI, or at least the concerns that investors now have on pretty much everything that is software. Because now with vibe coding, you could pretty much make about anything if you can simply type it out. And one company that has been on the very bad receiving end of this AI vibe coding era is Adobe. I'm pretty sure I've been seeing a lot of Adobe Photoshop clones lately. And when your entire business can be vibe coded, that's obviously a very bad thing. At this point, Adobe could be the short of the century. Cloud is also having a bit of trouble because it's also in a downtrend. However, it recently pulled into this support here and began bouncing through the moving averages, but now we've pretty much fell into this resistance downtrend here on the daily chart. Let's take a look at what that looks like on the weekly. All in all, it's actually a bit weak because this isn't trending action. This is quite choppy, but who really knows for sure? This could kind of be the pullback before new software innovations come into the market, and we could eventually take off from here. Things do look a little bad on the daily chart because we are in a downtrend and we are making lower lows and lower highs. It isn't terrible on the weekly. Actually, we are in a long-term uptrend and we've made pullbacks like this before, similarly to here. However, coming out of this pullback, we haven't made much of a move out of this entire breakout here into new highs. So what exactly does this mean for software? How are we going to use that to influence our trades? And really, it's simply about trading anything relating to software. Might not provide a multi-day swings coming out of key levels like other sectors that are doing really hot right now. So if we are buying software stocks, it could come with a lot of downside pressure and they could often fail. If anything, the sector should be shorted because there are other sectors that are doing really hot. I'm going to click on not software, sorry, solar here. And we have recently broken out on the daily chart, as you can see right here on this level. And we're also doing it with an increase in volume, which could likely mean that this breakout is likely to continue. Now, since this is an ETF, it gives us an insight into what some of the stocks might be doing, similar to how Adobe was in a downtrend for the software sector. We should be able to identify some solar names that are either breaking out or beginning to break out from at least some major key levels. Let's take a look at run, making a run for this breakout through this key level at the top here. It's also visible on the weekly as well. And what's really, really interesting about this RUN is that I'm going to expand the weekly here. And there's something really, really beautiful about this chart because we came out of a major downtrend and we ended this major downtrend with an increase in volatility and capitulation volume. And look how beautiful that looks. Look how much it stands out on the chart. And after we get that capitulation volume, we get a push into a key level and we now have a consolidation. This is really beautiful. The capitulation volume greatly increases the likelihood that RUN will indeed break out. And we also have the solar ETF showing strength, which is also an interesting combination for a run here. I'm going to bet this will break out in only a short matter of time, and we will eventually come back to it. But let's also look at NXT. And I want to look at this on the daily first because this seems to already have broken out on the daily chart. And again, here we have an increase in volume coming into that breakout. And of course, always from a key level. And although we haven't broken out with extreme momentum, it seems like it's just going sideways, especially with the market as a whole not doing much, which we will take a look at in just a bit. But I think we also need to look at the weekly here because the weekly is also beautiful because we get a push and a pullback into the moving average. Look how beautiful this pullback is into the moving average, and it simply makes a U-turn coming off that support. NXT looks excellent, and if the strength in solar really starts to come in, which it really hasn't really done yet, because RUN still is really just breaking out, and NXT is quite close to its all-time highs, but it's not at its all-time highs, so there is still room to come out of this breakout area here on the daily and on the weekly, as you can see as well, with moving averages support from a hot sector. Let's go on to the next one, SHLS, and I think we should go ahead and just look at this one on the weekly first, because I mean, we're getting the same thing sort of like we did right here on NXT. You get that pullback, and it beautifully comes out of this support from the 10-week moving average, and that's a very strong level of support. It's the weekly chart from a weekly moving average, and we also have a hot stock from a hot sector. That's a lot of things in our favor here with NXT, but we have SHLS, but within its breakout point, it hasn't broken out from its key level yet, which means there is a chance to get in on a breakout with a multi-day move if it's timed correctly, of course. And it looks like we almost have a little bit of a pseudo inside day with a decrease in volume. Okay, so the sector looks decent, and we also have stocks within that sector, some breaking out and some also setting up. But there's one thing we need to be aware of at all times, and that's the current market conditions. And I'm going to pull up this SPY. Actually, let's look at the QQQs instead. But the SPY is super interesting because it's about to break out into all-time highs, and we don't know if we will actually reject from this level here going into all-time highs, but it looks like we might just do that. It doesn't mean that we certainly won't reject and pull back, failing yet again for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. If that happens, it'll be pretty interesting to see. And it's okay if it does, because we will be prepared and we will be aware that the market is at a level of resistance. So what happens here will be very important, and it could be very important for solar stocks as well. And it could determine those stocks breaking out from those key level, whether they'll have a good time or a difficult time coming out of those key levels. Knowing where the market is and what it's doing is always super important. I always like to say it's sort of like a crystal ball, because you get to actually see what the market is doing and whether you're going to have trouble with a buy or whether you're going to have the wind with you, depending on what the market is doing. And that's really great. So let's just take a look at the SPY, and it's really kind of just been going sideways, and it looks like it wants to also attempt to break from this level as well. Again, many forms of resistance here. We have it here, here as well, here, and now we're going to try here yet again. So let's keep an eye on the market. I'm going to remain defensive, but will be looking for opportunities from leading stocks, from leading sectors, and solar is definitely one of them. And there are definitely more that I would like to talk about, and if you would like to hear about those, go ahead and hit the like button, and also consider subscribing, and I can continue making content like this. Have a good one. Cheers.